Day Off. My name's Courtney. Of sitting with my boy, Tony. What's up, Tony?
What's up, brother?
I'm excited for this one, man.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, totally. We got Gavin back. And, this dude, he's dropping all kind of bombs.
Knowledge, man.
And today, I know a lot of us who, either if you're in a salon as a commission stylist and you've dreamt about opening up a salon, or you made your kind of interim or intramural, visit to the salon suite, right? And your dream's always been opening up a salon. Hey, this podcast is for you.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I know that and I wonder if this is still true. I'll have to talk to Charles and Sharon about it. But I know when we left hair school, everybody had two goals, right? One or two goals. And one was to be a platform artist. And two was to open up their own suite, or not their own suite, I apologize, their own salon. So with Gavin today, we're going to talk at least about one of those, and that's how to start up your own salon, or what a salon startup looks like and what you need to know.
Yeah, so it's today's podcast is new salon startup.
There we go. Mr. Gavin Salsbery, welcome back to Your Day Off. And dude, this is going to be cool.
Yeah, excited to be here. I love this part of the industry. I love it when it's exciting, it's new. I think people always are in a different mindset when it's part of the dreams coming to fruition. And I think it's also, the anxiety can be high. It can be scary. It can, it's all of that wrapped up into one, and it's a new salon startup. So what I wanted to spend a little time today talking to you about is just knowing the math. Think about, you're building a foundation of a company, and just like you'd build the foundation of a home, you probably want the footings to be correct. You probably want the plumbing to be all where it needs to be. You probably want, all of the angles to be trued up and, level and all that. And if you're able to do that, when you do that, you hire an architect, you hire a contractor, you hire skilled laborers that are going to build this house. And I think the big why behind that is, I know you wouldn't want me building a house. It'd be jacked up. There'd be, tilted and holes and who knows,
Puff. Blow your house down.
Yeah. Don't turn on the gas.
Right.
And I use that analogy because I think salons are exactly the same. When it comes down to it, you've got an opportunity to get that foundation correct, lay that space out right, price those services what they need to be. And there's a lot of different moving parts to it. But if we just started out with, I think one of the most important things that always gets people big commitment is the lease. Start there. At some point, that's coming into the conversation. And I know you guys had Peter, one of my partners, Peter Mahoney, on leasing for profit. So I'm not going to go into the depth of what Peter taught us on that podcast. But here's what I want you to know. Whatever your lease is, you need to generate at least 7 times that amount every single month, or you're not going to be very happy. You're going to have to feed that business. So let's just throw an example. $3,500. That might be too hard for my Monday morning math mind. So $3,000. You're going to pay $3,000 for your commercial space. 7 times that is $21,000. We need to, before I sign that lease, I know if you or one of the two of you, Corey or Tony, brought me this lease and were telling me all about your space, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing, and here's where it's located. That would be one of my first questions. Is I'd say, how much are you paying in rent? And let's just say you say $3,000. I'd say, okay, you need to do at least 7 times that amount. That's $21,000 a month. Now, are you going to have some debt? Are you going to build it out? Many times you have to use a bank for that. You've got to do some kind of financing. So here's another golden nugget. The average salon that's built out today, this would be a brand new startup salon, it's $100 a square foot.
Wow. That's including build out and all. Or
That's
that's, or
everything.
that's hold on. So that's you're talking about $100 a square foot. Is that after build out and stuff? Is that what you're saying your monthly rent is going to be? Or what's that?
Nope. So let's keep using that 3,000 example. That bay. Let's say that bay is 1,500 square feet.
Uh-huh.
In that 1,500 square feet, you're just getting a vanilla shell. Just, there's sometimes gravel on the floor. It's just a brand new, it maybe was an existing business that they've ripped all the fixtures out. You've got a blank palette. It's $100 a square foot to design the salon. So on 1,500 square feet times 100, that's 150,000. In order for me to turn the key and open the door for business, I know without a doubt I'm going to have 150,000 into that. Now that is equipment and computers and plumbing and painting and lighting and restocking the color lab and the retail, and on and on. Like, so it's soup to nuts, A to Z, turn the key. You're looking at $100 a square foot. And I also want to say this, just because I think it sets the edge, the training up, or the information up better, is I'm also saying you're going to open up what I would call upper, middle to upper income salon company, because we could do a whole nother podcast. And I've actually heard I always tell you guys, I binge your podcast, but I've heard on some of your other podcasts, I got my salon open for 30,000. I got my salon open for 50. Awesome. Great job. Wonderful. But I'm talking from, an A or a B location, which quickly an A location is in a high traffic foot center. You're going to be beside a Starbucks. You're going to be with all the national players. You are the deal from day one. You're going into the big leagues. That's an A location. B location is out in the parking lot. Now they have outlots. Right. You're not in the center, but you're near the center. You're in the outlot. You're in the little side parcel that has some bays. You're at the intersection on the other corner. Like, you're not in the A game, but you're near, right there across the street. C location is you're a couple of blocks away from that. And typically the building you're in is a little, antiquated. It's an older building. Even like the parking lot, this surface of the parking lot, it's not going to be your fresh, clean, high-end center. It's more of a C location. And then your D location, you're going to need one of those big spotlights that shine in the sky at night.
That's in my basement.
To get That's a D location. And so if I taught it this way, no way would you spend $100 a square foot on a D location.
Right.
That wouldn't be smart. You'd be overbuilding it out. But when you're talking about A's and B locations, and your Starbucks is 2 doors down, you want to be able to walk in, and for that very first day of business, I'm walking into on average $100 per square foot of build out and total salon startup costs. Does that make sense,
Corey?
It
totally makes sense. So, I mean, not to kind of get into like leasing, and maybe this doesn't fit into leasing, but so you've taken in 150,000, like what? And I assume that's like through a bank and stuff. How long are those terms usually for those?
Yeah. So commercial loans typically are going to be 5 to 10 years. I think more common 5, 10s probably, unless you have a really good relationship with a banker, they're going to want their money sooner than 10 years. 5 to 7. If you do an SBA loan, I think they're 7 years. On an SBA loan, if I were going to borrow back to that 1,500 square foot salon at $100 a square foot, that's $150,000. I can borrow money through an SBA, which is it can be a very helpful government loan program. I would encourage anybody who is thinking of a salon, building out a salon, opening their first salon, look at that as a resource. And I believe all banks will have information on that program. But on that program, you just need to put down, I know it can change a little bit, but I've actually done it myself for one of our investments. I think they ask for 20% down. So 150,000, 20%, that's 30 grand. You'd need to come to the table with 30. You'd finance the remaining 120, and you're going to pay that over probably a 5-year period. So the last golden nugget, and then I'll pause, is I use the example of the $3,000 a month for your rent, if that was the example. And then you're going to have a debt payment, assuming that you had to borrow some money. So on a debt payment, that's a monthly payment as well. If you take your monthly debt payment that you're going to pay every month for the next, let's just say 5 years, and your rent payment, if you put those two together, you get one number, right?
Yeah, sure.
So in this example, 3,000 in rent, and let's just say 1,000 for debt. That $1,000 paying it for the next 60 months is going to wipe out your debt. So you'd have to add those two up. You'd have $4,000. You still need to do 7 times that amount. So now your multiplier is 28,000. I need to do at least $28,000 a month in that 1,500 square foot space, or I'm not going to be, I'll be feeding it. I won't be able to pay myself from behind the chair. I'm going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. Something's going to happen. Most people don't know that, you guys, when they go into leases. And I can tell you that, and I could write a book on it. I walk in, and oftentimes that salon owner has been in business 6 months to a year. They're struggling. They have no clue that $28,000 is their break even, and they're doing 24. Now, oh my God, you guys, I can get emotional and tell you different stories of how that can be a life game changer. Because imagine you need to do 28,000, you're doing 24, you're only $4,000 away, which I don't want to discredit that that's not 4,000, but that's not a huge, in the name of a commission salon, that's not a huge mountain to climb. But to that salon owner, they don't know 28 is the beginning of the freedom. They just know that they're not bringing in enough. And it's kind of like us in our lives. If we have $4,000 a month in expenses and we're only doing 3,800, we're broke as a joke. We're anxiety, the frustration, the financial just stress. But if we could bring in another $300, which isn't a massive amount of money, it crosses us into the break even. And so those numbers are critical. I would literally say, do not sign a lease if you don't know those numbers, because in today's world, it's leases keep increasing, and which means those numbers I just gave you are going to be at play, and oftentimes they're going up. To open a salon today costs more than it did 5 years ago than it did 10 years ago. So the sales goal is critical to knowing before you sign that lease.
So as your lease goes up, you got to make sure that your monthly goes
sales are going
well. Up. Yeah, sales has to go up to keep that seven times accurate, right?
Yeah. And then I'll drop some more golden nuggets. I want you guys, if you're listening, that, making notes, I just hope this can be helpful. So whatever, and it's a little math laden, and if you need help, we can help you with that. But I just want you to at least be aware that there really is real numbers out there. Whatever your cost per square foot is, and how you figure that, I have to get my phone out to do a quick one, okay?
Yeah.
But if we just keep using that same example, $3,000 a month on 1,500 square feet, so that means in a year's time, we're going to pay how much? $36,000.
Right.
$3,000 every month for 12. We're going to pay $36,000 that first 12 months. Divide the annual rent, $36,000, divided by the square footage, 1,500. Our per square foot cost, $24 in that example. We have to carry an average ticket that's 3 times our square footage cost.
Oh, so $75.
$75. So the day before, and this is where pricing comes into play. When I really know what I'm doing, then when I'm sitting creating my pricing menus, and it's It's where I'm headed. I need to make sure that no matter what I price those hair color, haircut services, it needs to be priced so that that $75 ticket average is intentional.
That's so like it was so arbitrary to me until that moment.
Right.
Right there, right? It was just like, well, yeah, well, that's because that's what I could get, right?
Right.
But when you open up, that's amazing, right? And $75, and that's on that same example though, right?
Yeah, it's on the same example.
You know what's crazy about that is that 24,000. I mean, that $24, that seems like cheap rent too, right?
Yeah. You know, there's it goes back to that A, B, C, D. So a D location, the ones that are just out, you can't find, out in the middle of not and never. That you're going to get into. Sometimes owners will tell me that at a hair show, we'll be doing one-on-ones, and they'll say, "Oh, I got a sweet deal on my lease," and I'm like, "Awesome! Tell me more about it." And they're like, "I'm only paying $9 a square foot." Now, knowing what I know, I immediately sit back and I'm like, "Oh," I don't say this out loud, but my mind's thinking, "Oh no, how is this a really bad, dilapidated old center?" Because $9 a square foot is not good. I mean, that's
at that point, the landlord's desperate at that point.
Yeah, and it's probably a really old center that's just beat up, and probably your demographic, the neighborhoods around it, are not going to be the middle upper income bracket. So when you look at $24 a square foot in this example, that's probably going to come in more towards I'd say on the low end of a B location, upper end of a C location. When you get into A locations can be easily $35 to $45 a square foot. So when you take an A location and I'm right beside a Starbucks and I'm paying $30, $40 a square foot, I need to do 3 times my square footage. So now that average ticket needs to be $120. So do you see where people get in trouble when the salon owner calls and pretends to be a fictitious client and they're price shopping just to try to create their own price menu?
Right.
And they imagine they're calling B's and C locations, getting their pricing, and they're an A location. Uh-oh. Don't want to set my pricing on someone else's square footage, but we don't know what we don't know.
We don't know what we don't know. That's
the truth.
That's a big takeaway there too. But now we know, man. 3 times your square footage. That's now. Okay, so back up just a little bit, or just another question. So you did that off of the square footage. However, if I also have $1,000, or if I'm $1,000 a month in build out cost, does that number go up as well? Would it be 3 times that number as well?
Well, there's a fast math. One of my mentors taught me that whatever you're borrowing, it's just quick math. Nowadays, you can go to a mortgage calculator, a commercial calculator online, plug in what you think you're going to borrow, and it'll immediately give you a monthly payment. But the old school math that I was taught is whatever you're going to borrow, 2% of that amount is your monthly payment. So if you're going to borrow $150,000 to build your salon out, 2% of 150 is $3,000. That's your monthly payment. Now that's going to get pretty close to that calculator. It might be a little high. Mm-hmm. So in our example, the $3,000 rent, and if we are going to put in $150,000, $100 per square foot, we're going to have more than likely $150,000 to $3,000 payment we're going to make for 5 years. So now we have our rent at $3,000. Our monthly payment for our debt's $3,000. We're at $6,000. Need to do 7 times that amount. Mm-hmm. So that's $42,000. That's break even. Profits 10 times. Wow. So I need to do $60,000 in profit. Now I want to take it one more step. I don't want to lose the audience, but I just want to take that one more, how scientific it gets. Math doesn't lie. If I have a $3,000 rent payment, a $3,000 debt payment, I'm paying every month, I'm waking up to $6,000. I know you have other payments. People always, well, what about my products? What about my lighting, my utility costs, my front desk? Awesome. It's all assumed in this formula. $6,000 a month times 7 is 42. That's your break even. Times 10 is your profit target. That's $60,000 a month. I can quickly tell you that the average chair in America does about $5,000 a month. If I walked into any hair salon company in America, the average chair generates $5,000 a month. So if I'm going to do 60,000 a month, how many chairs would I need as a minimum?
12.
12 chairs. So see how my design starts? I literally back into the design. So now with my architect, I'd be saying, dudes, I'm going to need at least 12 chairs. Now, if I double shift, I could say 6. But that's putting too much pressure, having to have every chair double shifted. I would try to profit on one shift. So which would be 12 chairs generating 5,000. And then that second shift, if I did double shift, that's kind of putting me beyond that times 10, 60,000 a month revenue mark.
Wow.
Wow, that's right. That's amazing. So, I mean, basically you're coming down to, I mean, that's why more and more salons are open 7 days a week too, right? Right. You know, even on those numbers, you know, you're only talking about, you know, $2,000 within that day.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like what, $1,250 a week per chair?
Yeah.
Seems doable. Although, you know, our area is a little bit weird because of how high rent it is, you know?
Yeah.
So 12 chairs times 5. Wow, dude.
So then here's what I think it comes into play before you sign that lease is, and it gets more into the mentoring, is the psychology. Let's just pretend this is you, Corey. This is you're thinking of opening up this salon. You haven't signed the lease yet, but you're telling me now I know how much the space is going to be. I just got a lease proposal. I'm already running some of the numbers like we are now. That one of the things that I think is important is outside of the numbers, Corey, do you want to lead 12 hairstylists?
Exactly. I mean, if you're asking me, no, I don't.
Yeah. And I can understand that, but I think that's always a missing element, that once you understand the numbers and you can back into, here, watch, we're going to keep playing with this. If I have to do 60,000 and that average ticket needed to be $75, 60,000 a month divided by $75, which is the average ticket of the client we're aiming for, that would be 800 clients. So Corey, do you want to manage 12 hairstylists, and can this brand see 800 different human beings walking in every month? And that's a whole different conversation. Now we're getting into leadership. We're getting into, you know, management and operations and systems and accountability. And so, yeah, you need the numbers, but you also need to think of just that reality to drive that type of revenue in the door.
Way to kill my dream.
I know.
No, I'm just,
I mean, it is though. I mean, there's so much more to it than that. You know, there's so much more.
What? Just, you know, you're right. I've always wanted to open up a salon, but I've never thought about, do I want to manage 12 people? Right.
Yeah.
Do I want to be responsible to getting 800 clients into the salon that month, every month? That's, you know what I mean? When you start putting those factors onto it, make sure it's something that you really want to do before you just get into it and just try to fulfill a dream. Have the math and have the numbers. Then,
I mean, this opens up a whole nother conversation, and maybe I'm going to take us down, but you know me. But I mean, even if you're in a salon, you know, you've got like maybe 2 buddies that are going to go with you. Where do you find the other 10 without leeching everybody around you? You know, because you also don't want to go, and I wouldn't, Corey wouldn't, since you put it on me, Gavin, I wouldn't want to go into a town and then start leeching off of, you know, someone I might have to borrow some developer off of someday. You know what I mean? So like, how do you kind of build that? You know, these are all the questions that are in my head that, you know, I mean, people leech people in this industry. That's what they do. But, you know, I wouldn't want to have to build my business that way.
Grow your own. I mean, that's rule probably number 1, grow your own. I was telling you about one of my partners. He got to, and that's why I get fascinated with your podcast. I love hearing Robert Cromains talk about Vidal Sassoon. Now, see, I love history. So when you get into that, I'm like driving through San Francisco, almost ready to pull the car over just to park, just to listen to some of that history. But I'll drop some history on you. One of my partners got to sit and have dinner with Vidal. And Vidal's secret of success, my partner asked him, what's the secret of success? Which is a giant question to ask Vidal Sassoon. And he said it like he does, really quietly, very softly. He said, keep young horses in your stables. That was Vidal's line back to my one of my buddies. So grow your own. Keep young horses in your stables. If you're ever going to even dream, don't open up a commissioned salon if your strategy is going to be to poach and recruit from other salons, because that, to me, it's you're going to have to give away higher commissions to do it. And you're creating a culture that I think is different than a culture that's comes from cosmetology, trained by your top stylist, and then they're put onto the floor with kind of, you've taught them the right way. They don't have the bad habits. Because I think when you get into the opposite, where you're just recruiting, and I don't want to say I don't want to make it seem like that's a bad thing, but I think it's just a thing that now that culture, if they came to you for higher commissions, more than likely they're going to go somewhere else for higher commissions. Whereas when they were grown in your culture from one of your lead stylists, without a doubt, there's a different reality to the attrition and the retention and the overall just good vibes of that culture.
Right, but there's a big hole there, Gavin. I mean, we're saying that, you have to bring in, what is it, 60K or something. You can't grow those people in year one. That's
No.
a long-term goal. So like when you go to open your doors, how do you mitigate, that cost expense before you do have enough of a foundation to start growing people?
Corey, that's an awesome question, man. Like, awesome. Well, this is why it might be important to negotiate your lease so you get 6 free months. Like that right there can give you a little bit of a breathing room, so that those first 6 months you're not, and 3 months is not uncommon. 6 months, you better know how to negotiate a lease. But if you can get 6 months of free rent, that's giving you a little more time, runway time, to get the sales growth going. Another thing is, and I say this with tongue in cheek, is also why we say to open up a salon is $100 a square foot is because we're assuming you'll have a cash reserve. Part of that $100 a square foot is that when the day you open your doors, there's actually a cash reserve sitting in your account. Most salon owners, they pour everything they've got, whether it's the bank financing, the personal financing. The day they open their salon and they turn the key, if you were to walk up to that new owner that day and say, Corey, how much money you got in your bank account today? The business bank account.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of salon companies, the failure's right there. They're opening the doors, but there's not a lot of cash reserve there. So again, that's going to give you a longer runway that you might have to burn through some of that cash before those sales get to the other side of the break even. And then I think the other thing is there's always a reality that, it's in a perfect world, the day we open, I've got my revenue, or I guess we're using you, Corey, your revenue, as well as, yes, there's probably going to be a few other stylists, we hope, that would come with you.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you very much.
But, and that's going to help. But usually that's not 7 times your rent and debt. Could be if you pull, a bunch of people out of a salon or from a couple of different salons. But that was a whole nother session. Go try to recruit some people right now. Good luck with that.
Right. Yeah, no, right.
Because everybody and their brother is understaffed in our industry right now. So that's tricky right now. The sooner you can start that associate program and you can onboard a stylist within 3 to 6 months where they can be on that floor, generating revenue, beginning to build their book. That to me is, all of that's working at the same time.
Look, he said, like, do you want to manage 12 people? Now you also have to like manage like a schooling system or some kind of like education thing too.
Hey, life of a salon owner.
You ain't kidding, and the buck ends with you, right?
Right.
What's that saying?
But I think you guys, I love that you've talked about it. The reality, I thought it was you, Corey, that said maybe it's taken 6 to 8 extra hours a week being self-employed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think no matter what type of owner you are, it comes with what you're signing up for is more time. Sometimes I think, and you guys might laugh and agree, that sometimes the best place to be in the beauty industry is just being an employee.
Yeah.
If you now I'm assuming it's the right salon, right culture, good leadership. You're making a lot of, you're earning a good living. You see potential and you can be empowered to maybe own a piece of the company or open up more locations. But regardless, whether you're self-employed or the salon owner of a commission salon, it's going to come with more time. And it's not cut out for sissies.
I think that's where we end it. I know. Mr. Gavin, once again, bombs dropped everywhere. Hopefully if you listen to this podcast, if you're in your car, and you're going to open a salon, listen to it again at a desk so you can start writing down some numbers and running your numbers. And, certainly Summit has always been a great resource for salon owners. So make sure to reach out to them as well. But Mr. Gavin Salsbery, thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off.
Thank you.
Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review.
But if you don't like it, forget about it.
Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.